Hello and welcome to the Sleepy Hub, your cozy place for a beautiful night's sleep. I'm so glad you're here. You have held so many things together in your life. You have done an amazing job. Now it's time to rest, to let your body soften, and to let your mind drift gently into curiosity and calm, and to let go into the sleepy world of dreams. In tonight's story, we'll be shining a sleepy spotlight on Albert Einstein, the quiet dreamer whose ideas change the way we see the universe. If you enjoy stories like this, please consider liking, sharing, and leaving a sleepy, loving comment below. It helps other sleepy friends find their way here, and together we can grow this peaceful little corner of learning and rest. So, take a moment to find peace and stillness wherever you are. Prepare your resting space in these moments before we begin our sleepy spotlight. Feel into this moment and simply rest where you feel safe. Take a deep, slow breath in and let it go. Feel the weight of your body being supported. Let your shoulders drop. Let your face relax. Release every little muscle around the eyes and down to the jaw, completely surrendering. You don't have to hold anything up right now. This is your moment to pause. Imagine a quiet room filled with soft golden light. A clock ticks gently in the corner. Outside, the evening sky glows with the faint shimmer of stars. Somewhere, far away, a violin plays a slow, thoughtful melody, the kind Albert Einstein loved to play when he was deep in thought. Einstein once said, "Imagination is more important than knowledge." He didn't mean that knowledge wasn't precious. He meant that curiosity, the act of wondering, is what leads us to knowledge in the first place. Tonight's story isn't about formulas or fame. It's about curiosity, the kind that lives quietly inside all of us, waiting to be noticed. Albert Einstein was not born a genius. He was born a question. From the time he was a small boy in Germany, he was fascinated by the invisible, by light, by magnetism, by time itself. He spent his life asking what seemed like simple questions. What would happen if I rode a beam of light? Why does gravity pull? How do we know time moves the same for everyone? But the way he asked them, slowly, deeply, and with childlike wonder, changed science forever. As you listen tonight, we'll travel through his life, from a curious child holding a compass, to a clerk in a quiet office dreaming of the stars, to an old man smiling gently at the mysteries that still remained. We'll learn how his imagination became his greatest tool, and how even the most complex ideas began with a simple sense of awe. For now, let your thoughts drift like starlight across a still night sky. You don't need to solve anything or understand everything. Just rest in the presence of curiosity. Feel how soft that word is. Curiosity. Light as breath, steady as time. The world outside can wait. The clocks can tick on their own. You are here, calm and safe, ready to explore the mind of a man who dreamed of light. So let's begin, with a young boy staring at a compass, discovering that even what we can't see can move us. Chapter 1: The Boy Who Watched Light. Albert Einstein was born on March 14, 1879, in the small German city of Ulm, beside the Danube River. His parents, Hermann and Pauline Einstein, lived above the family's electrical workshop, a narrow building filled with the faint scent of oil and the hum of copper coils. The world outside was turning quickly toward modernity, but inside their home life moved at a gentler rhythm. Quiet dinners, music from Pauline's piano, and the curious gaze of a boy who seemed to live half in silence and half in thought. People later imagined that Einstein must have been a prodigy from the start, speaking in full sentences or solving puzzles in his crib. But the truth was humbler. He was slow to speak. His parents worried. For years he would whisper words to himself, repeating them softly until they felt right in his mouth. He doesn't talk much, relatives said. Perhaps he's shy. Yet behind those long pauses, something was forming. A habit of watching carefully before answering, of seeing the world as if it was slightly slowed down so every motion could be studied. That quiet patience would become the foundation of his genius. When Albert was 5, his father showed him a small pocket compass. The moment is one Einstein would recall decades later as one of the most important of his life. The boy turned the compass slowly in his hand and noticed that no matter how he moved it, the needle always pointed in the same direction. There was no string, no wind, no visible reason. Something unseen was at work, something invisible yet sure. He stared in wonder, sensing, though he could not yet name it, that the universe held secrets deeper than sight. In that single moment of childhood awe, he felt what he later called the miracle of mystery. It was the spark that never went out. The Einsteins moved soon afterward to Munich, where Hermann opened a small company making electrical equipment. At home, Pauline nurtured her son's love of music. She taught him piano, and soon he began the violin, a companion he would keep for life. Music became the language his young mind used when words fell short. He would close his eyes and lose himself in Bach or Mozart, tracing invisible patterns in the air as if the notes were threads connecting heaven and earth. Later, he said that his discoveries came to him through musical intuition, that equations were simply melodies of reason. School in Munich, however, did not suit him. German education at the end of the 19th century prized obedience, memorization, and rigid order. Teachers expected students to recite facts without question. Einstein, gentle but stubborn, could not help asking why. Why should he memorize lists of Latin verbs he would never use? Why must geometry be learned by rule instead of curiosity? One teacher told him he would never amount to anything, another that his presence undermined respect. Yet even as they scolded him, the boy was thinking, not of rebellion, but of freedom. He imagined light traveling through space, clocks ticking in rhythm, and invisible fields that carried energy the way the compass needle carried direction. At home, he read far beyond his years. He devoured popular science books, especially one by Aaron Bernstein that described riding through space on a beam of electricity. The image thrilled him. What would I see if I could travel beside a ray of light? The question settled quietly into his imagination and waited there for 20 years, until it blossomed into the theory of relativity. In the evenings, Hermann and Pauline's dinner table filled with quiet conversation. His father spoke of the future of electricity, of dynamos and generators, of the way invisible currents could light entire cities. Albert listened closely. His uncle Jakob, an engineer, gave him geometry textbooks and puzzles. When he solved them easily, his uncle smiled and said, "You have a gift for thinking." But Albert didn't feel gifted. He felt curious, drawn to the spaces between certainty and wonder. When Einstein was 9, the family's business struggled and they moved again, this time to Italy, near Milan. Albert stayed behind in Munich to finish school, but soon grew lonely and restless. At 15, he left without permission and joined his parents in Pavia. The journey across the Alps left a lasting impression, the train curving through mountains, sunlight flashing on metal, the strange sensation of motion and stillness at once. Later, he compared the feeling to time itself, how one can move quickly, yet feel suspended in a single instant. In Pavia, freed from the classroom, he wandered the countryside with notebooks, writing small equations that described the curve of rivers and the spread of light across vineyards. His parents, though worried, began to understand that their son's education might not follow the usual path. "He must do what he loves," Pauline said, polishing his violin as he studied. When Albert decided to attend school in Switzerland, he chose the city of Aarau, known for its progressive ideas. There, for the first time, he met teachers who encouraged imagination. They asked students to reason, not recite. Einstein flourished. He built thought experiments like sculptures in his mind. What happens if lightning strikes both ends of a moving train at the same moment? Would the passengers see it as simultaneous? How would time behave? These questions were seeds planted in a young mind already reaching for cosmic understanding. At 17, he entered the Swiss Federal Polytechnic in Zurich, intending to become a teacher of physics and mathematics. The school's halls buzzed with energy, young thinkers debating in cafes, sketches of equations on napkins. Einstein, shy but intense, joined their conversations only when he had something meaningful to add. He preferred long walks by the lake, turning ideas over like stones. His notes were scattered with small drawings, waves, arrows, and the word Licht, meaning light. Everything returned to light. Though he would later revolutionize science, his grades were uneven. He often skipped lectures, preferring to study original papers by Maxwell and Newton rather than class notes. Professors found him brilliant, but unconventional. One wrote, "He thinks for himself to an excessive degree." Yet that independence was exactly what the world would one day celebrate. When he graduated in 1900, work was hard to find. He was 21, with a diploma, but no teaching post. For 2 years he tutored, lived frugally, and dreamed. He had fallen in love with a fellow student, Mileva Maric, a gifted mathematician. Together, they discussed physics late into the night, scribbling on scraps of paper under lamplight. They were young and uncertain, but their conversations shimmered with possibility. In 1902, with help from a friend, Einstein secured a job at the Swiss Patent Office in Bern. It was not glamorous, but it paid the rent and, more importantly, gave him time to think. Surrounded by applications describing inventions, electrical circuits, clocks, measuring devices, he learned to examine ideas for their essence. What principle makes this work? What truth hides beneath its design? That habit of searching for simplicity became the foundation of his theories. Looking back, Einstein often said he was grateful for those quiet years. In the stillness of the office, he wrote, "I learned to ask whether the foundations themselves were secure." While others sought fame, he sought clarity. While others collected facts, he collected wonder. The boy who had once stared at a compass now spent his days reading about synchronizing clocks across distances, about light signals and timekeeping. Late at night, he would look out the window at the street lamps glowing in mist and imagine beams of light racing past the city roofs, stretching outward into the infinite. He wondered if the laws of physics looked the same for everyone who watched them, or if motion changed reality itself. These thoughts were gentle but persistent, circling back like music themes. Einstein's early life teaches a quiet lesson. Genius is not noise, it is patience. It is the willingness to be confused, to hold a question without rushing for an answer. In a world that valued obedience, he followed curiosity instead. His grades did not predict greatness, his wonder did. He once said, "I have no special talents. I am only passionately curious." As you rest now, think of that child turning a compass in his small hands, feeling the invisible pull of the earth. That same invisible force moves through you, the pull toward understanding, toward calm, toward connection. You don't need to solve anything tonight. You only need to notice the gentle mystery of existence, the quiet hum beneath ordinary life. Outside, the night hums softly too. Somewhere, light travels across empty space, unchanged since the day Einstein first imagined chasing it. In its steady motion lies the beginning of every discovery, and perhaps also the secret of rest. To move without haste, to glow without burning, to wonder without fear. The boy who watched light became the man who redefined it. But before all the theories and fame, there was just curiosity, pure, simple, and kind. That is where every story of brilliance begins. And in that same place of wonder, you can drift into your own peaceful thoughts, letting them wander like beams across the quiet sky. Chapter 2: A Curious Student. When Albert Einstein arrived in Aarau, Switzerland, he was 16 and searching for a place where questions were welcome. He had left the strict classrooms of Munich behind and carried with him a small suitcase, a violin, and the memory of teachers who had told him that curiosity was a problem to be corrected. Aarau was different. The school there, the Aargau Cantonal School, was known for encouraging students to think for themselves. Its teachers believed that the goal of education was not to fill a mind, but to awaken it. For Einstein, this was the first time school felt like freedom. His teachers noticed right away that he did not learn like other students. When most students memorized equations, Albert wanted to know why they worked. He often stayed behind after lessons, tracing geometric shapes in the air and asking his instructors what would happen if one could move at the speed of light. The headmaster, a man named Jost Winterler, saw something rare in this quiet teenager, not arrogance or rebellion, but genuine curiosity. Winterler invited Albert to live with his family, and the young student quickly became part of their household. He grew especially close to Jost's daughter, Marie, who shared his love of music and long evening walks. They would talk about nature, art, and the strange beauty of mathematics that seemed to describe both. During his year in Aarau, Einstein began to form ideas that would later bloom into his greatest theories. One of his assignments asked him to imagine himself riding on a beam of light, the same question that had fascinated him since childhood. He described what the world would look like from that perspective, realizing that if he could move alongside light, it would appear frozen, still and silent, neither wave nor particle, but something beyond the ordinary sense of time. This image stayed with him for decades. Einstein completed his studies in Aarau in 1896 and earned his diploma. That same year, he renounced his German citizenship to avoid military service and applied to become a Swiss citizen, drawn to the country's reputation for neutrality and intellectual openness. He was accepted into the Swiss Federal Polytechnic in Zurich, one of the most respected scientific institutions in Europe. He was 17, lanky, thoughtful, and slightly unkempt, with dark curls that seemed to have a life of their own. At the Polytechnic, the pace of life quickened. The city of Zurich hummed with trolleys and conversation. Cafes buzzed with students debating art, philosophy, and physics. Einstein studied in the Department of Mathematics and Physics, intending to become a teacher. His professors included some of the brightest minds in Europe. Heinrich Weber, who had studied under the legendary physicist Hermann von Helmholtz, and the mathematician Adolf Hurwitz, whose lectures on geometry filled the hall with elegant chalk patterns. But Einstein, though brilliant, was not a perfect student. He attended lectures irregularly, preferring to learn through independent study. He loved theory more than repetition, and preferred the original papers of great scientists to textbooks. He read James Clerk Maxwell's works on electromagnetism in the library and carried them everywhere, sometimes forgetting to eat lunch. His notes from this period revealed doodles of waves, rays, and equations written alongside musical notation. Physics and music had already merged into one language for him. He made friends with a small circle of fellow students, including Michel Bessot, who would later become his lifelong collaborator and confidant. They often met at a small cafe near the university to discuss science, literature, and the latest experiments in electricity. Einstein's classmates found his thinking unusual. He did not argue to win, but to understand. He could listen longer than anyone, one recalled. He had the patience to think slowly. Yet not all his professors admired him. Heinrich Weber once scolded him for skipping class and refused to write him a recommendation letter after graduation. Weber's lectures focused on practical engineering, while Einstein was drawn to pure theory, to questions about space, time, and the structure of the universe. "He is clever, but he will never amount to much," one instructor remarked. Einstein, unbothered, kept going. He had no interest in fame or approval, only in understanding. Outside of class, life in Zurich was lively. Einstein rented small rooms, often cluttered with papers, books, and the occasional violin resting against a chair. He played music with friends for relaxation, saying that life without playing music is inconceivable to me. His favorite composer was Mozart, whose simple melodies hid deep patterns. Einstein later said that when working on difficult problems, he would play Mozart or Bach, and ideas would arrive as if they had always been there. In 1898, he met a fellow physics student, Mileva Maric. She was one of the few women studying science at the time, and Einstein was drawn to her intellect and determination. They studied together, debated theories, and exchanged notebooks filled with equations. Their friendship deepened into love. Mileva's perspective challenged Einstein. She approached problems methodically, while he relied on intuition. Together, they balanced reason and imagination. In later letters, Einstein thanked her for the inspiration she provided during their student years. Despite his passion for learning, Einstein struggled with the formalities of academia. When he graduated in 1900, his grades were respectable, but not exceptional. Professors who disliked his independence gave him lukewarm recommendations, and as a result, he found no university willing to hire him as an assistant. For a young physicist with bright ideas but no position, it was a discouraging start. Still, he refused to see failure as final. He took temporary tutoring jobs, teaching mathematics to students who often could not grasp his unconventional methods. He was patient, but sometimes impatient with the limits of rote learning. "Teaching helps me clarify my own understanding," he told a friend. "But the world moves too slowly for the speed of thought." Financially, life was tight. He and Mileva shared modest rooms and walked everywhere to save money. Yet even in these lean years, Einstein's mind was rich with questions. He read endlessly: Newton, Faraday, Maxwell, and kept returning to the nature of light. Was it a wave, as most scientists believed, or something else? He began to suspect that light might behave both as a wave and as a stream of discrete packets of energy, later called photons. The idea was radical, but it fit the evidence that others had ignored. Einstein's independence sometimes made him feel isolated. He wrote to Bessot, "I am a horse pulling alone in the harness." But he also knew that solitude could be fruitful. Without professors dictating his path, he could think freely. At night, he would sit by a window in Zurich, watching the gas lamps flicker along the river and imagining invisible fields of energy connecting them all. He wondered how electricity moved, how time flowed, and whether the laws of nature were truly the same for everyone, everywhere. In those quiet hours, curiosity became comfort. While many students sought clear answers, Einstein learned to rest in the questions themselves. He believed that understanding would come naturally, like music resolving into harmony, if one stayed patient enough to listen. That mindset, part discipline, part faith, became the heart of his genius. In 1901, he received Swiss citizenship and soon after graduated. He sent job applications to universities across Europe, all politely declined. His professors advised him to give up and pursue teaching at lower levels, but Einstein persisted. Then, a small opportunity appeared. The Swiss Patent Office in Bern was hiring examiners. The position didn't require prestige, only a sharp, analytical mind. It was far from the academic world he had imagined, but it offered time to think. And time, as he would later show the world, is everything. As he prepared to leave Zurich, Einstein walked one last time along the Limmat River. The moonlight shimmered on the water, and the street lamps glowed softly in the mist. He thought of light again, always light, and how it could seem both particle and wave, how it bent, reflected, and changed depending on who watched it. He couldn't yet explain it, but the question filled him with peace rather than frustration. For him, wonder was never a problem to solve, but a companion to keep. That night, he wrote in his notebook a simple phrase in German: Die Welt ist wunderbar verständlich. The world is wonderfully comprehensible. He didn't mean it was easy to understand, but that it could be understood. That beneath the complexity, there was order, harmony, and beauty. It was a faith in reason, but also in imagination. As you rest now, you can imagine that same young man stepping into his new life with nothing but questions and curiosity. The air of Zurich is cool, the sky pale with early light, and in the distance the future hums quietly, waiting. Einstein is not yet famous. He is simply human, thoughtful, uncertain, and full of wonder. And that is where all great stories of discovery begin. Not in certainty, but in the gentle courage to keep asking why. Chapter 3: The Patent Office Dreamer. In 1902, Albert Einstein began what would quietly become one of the most important chapters of his life, though it didn't look remarkable at all. He had taken a modest job at the Swiss Patent Office in Bern, a small, neat city nestled between rolling hills and the winding Aar River. His title was Technical Expert, Third Class. His task was simple but meticulous: to examine inventions submitted for approval and decide whether they were truly new. To most, it would have seemed tedious, reviewing gears, switches, and electrical circuits day after day. But to Einstein, it was a kind of sanctuary. The patent office was located on the second floor of a grey stone building with tall windows that opened toward the clock tower of Bern. Inside, the air smelled faintly of ink and old paper. The tick of the office clock was steady, patient, and in that rhythm, Einstein found peace. He wore plain suits, carried his lunch in a small parcel, and often forgot to comb his hair. To his co-workers, he was kind but distracted, always lost in thought. They nicknamed him the Bureau of Theoretical Physics. Einstein's supervisor, Friedrich Haller, valued clarity and precision, qualities that matched Einstein's natural habits. Every invention Einstein reviewed had to be reduced to its essence: how it worked, what made it original, what principle governed its function. That process, stripping away the unnecessary to reveal the core, became a kind of mental training for him. It was here, among forms and diagrams, that he learned to think simply, to look for beauty and logic beneath complexity. Later he said, "A theory should be as simple as possible, but not simpler." The workday ended at 5, and while others hurried home, Einstein lingered, gazing at the sunset through the window. In the evenings, he would walk the cobbled streets of Bern, sometimes humming quietly to himself or tracing invisible equations with his finger on the railing of the bridge. The rhythm of life in the patent office, predictable and quiet, gave his imagination room to wander. At home, he lived with his new wife, Mileva Marek, and their infant son, Hans Albert. Their apartment was small but warm, filled with books, musical instruments, and the sound of laughter. Money was scarce, yet the evenings glowed with conversation. Einstein often worked late into the night at a small wooden table, papers spread across the floor. His violin rested nearby, ready for breaks when thoughts became too tangled. "When I am troubled in spirit," he once said, "I play until I forget." It was during these peaceful yet demanding years that Einstein began to build the ideas that would change physics forever. The world around him seemed ordinary, but within his mind, revolutions were forming. The questions that had followed him since childhood, about light, motion, and time, returned with new force. How could the speed of light be constant, as Maxwell's equations said, even if the observer was moving? What did that mean for time itself? Could two people moving differently through space actually experience time differently? He began to run thought experiments, or as he called them, Gedankenexperimente. He would imagine riding alongside a beam of light, or watching a clock from a moving train, or seeing lightning strike two places at once. He let these imaginary scenes play out in his mind until their logic revealed something new. He said, "Imagination is more important than knowledge, for knowledge is limited, while imagination encircles the world." Einstein's evenings often stretched past midnight. He wrote quietly, his fountain pen scratching in rhythm with the ticking clock. His papers were full of neat handwriting and occasional ink blots. Sometimes he worked so intensely that he forgot to eat. Mileva would remind him gently to rest, to sleep. He would smile, promise to, and then return to his calculations. He wasn't trying to make history. He was simply trying to make sense of what he saw. By 1905, Einstein was 26 years old. He had been at the patent office for 3 years and had written several small papers published in minor journals, but nothing that drew much attention. Still, something inside him felt ready, as though all his years of quiet thinking were about to crystallize into something clear. That spring, he began what would later be called Annus Mirabilis, his miracle year. Between March and December of 1905, working entirely on his own and with no university affiliation, Einstein published 4 scientific papers that would transform physics. Each one was revolutionary, and each was written in the same small apartment above the streets of Bern. The first paper, submitted in March, dealt with the nature of light. Einstein proposed that light could behave not just as a continuous wave, but also as individual packets of energy, what he called quanta. These quanta, later known as photons, could explain a puzzling phenomenon called the photoelectric effect, in which light striking metal caused it to emit electrons. It was a radical idea, one that even his hero, Max Planck, found startling. Decades later, it would earn Einstein the Nobel Prize. The second paper, published in May, proved the reality of atoms and molecules through an explanation of Brownian motion, the random movement of tiny particles in liquid. By showing that these movements were caused by invisible collisions with atoms, Einstein gave direct evidence for something scientists had long debated: that matter itself was made of smaller, unseen parts. In June came his third paper, the one that truly shook the world. It was called On the Electrodynamics of Moving Bodies, but history remembers it as the special theory of relativity. In it, Einstein proposed 2 bold ideas. First, that the laws of physics are the same for all observers moving at constant speeds. And second, that the speed of light is constant for everyone, no matter how they move. From those simple assumptions came profound consequences: that time and space are not absolute, that they depend on the observer. Clocks could tick at different rates, lengths could contract, and simultaneity itself was relative. The universe, once thought solid and fixed, had become flexible and alive. His fourth paper, published in September, was only 3 pages long, but contained one of the most famous equations in history: E equals mc squared. It showed that energy, E, and mass, m, are interchangeable, connected by the square of the speed of light, c squared. In other words, matter itself is a form of energy. It was a breathtaking conclusion that every object, every atom, carries unimaginable energy within. Each paper was written during quiet hours after work, when Bern slept and the lamplight glowed softly over his desk. There was no team, no laboratory, no funding, just a man with a notebook and the patience to dream. He mailed the papers one by one to Annalen der Physik, a respected German journal, signing them simply A. Einstein. At first, the scientific community barely noticed. The ideas were too new, too strange. But a few perceptive physicists began to see their brilliance. Max Planck, already famous for his work on quantum theory, wrote to Einstein to express admiration. "You have made a significant step," he said, "and I hope you will continue." Einstein continued indeed, though his daily life changed little. He still walked to the patent office each morning, reviewed inventions, and chatted kindly with colleagues. Few realized that the quiet man by the window had just altered the course of human thought. At home, Mileva supported him, though their relationship grew strained under the pressure of work and financial worry. Einstein loved his family deeply, but found it hard to separate thought from life. Even while feeding his son or playing violin in the evenings, ideas followed him. Once, when asked how he came upon such extraordinary insights, he said, "It's not that I'm so smart, it's that I stay with problems longer." Outside, the world was beginning to change. Automobiles appeared on the streets, telephones buzzed in offices, and electricity illuminated cities. Humanity was stepping into a new century, and without knowing it, it was stepping into Einstein's universe, one shaped by relativity, energy, and light. By the end of 1905, he felt a quiet satisfaction, not pride. He had not set out to be famous. He had simply followed curiosity, step by patient step, until the universe unfolded its patterns before him. In a letter to a friend, he wrote, "The years of searching in the dark for a truth that one feels but cannot express seem almost over." Still, he remained humble. When someone asked if he believed he had solved the mysteries of nature, he smiled gently and said, "I have merely scratched the surface." Tonight, as you rest, you might imagine that small apartment in Bern, the desk, the ticking clock, the faint sound of a violin from another room. The man at the desk is writing quietly, unaware that his thoughts will one day change the world. His candle burns low, his pen moves steadily, and the city outside sleeps beneath the same stars he once wondered about as a boy. In that peaceful glow, time seems to soften, as if the theory of relativity has already begun to work its magic. The night stretches and bends around thought, and everything feels connected: light, energy, curiosity, and rest. For Einstein, and perhaps for you too, the greatest discoveries come not in noise or urgency, but in stillness, when the world is quiet enough for imagination to be heard. Chapter 4. The Year of Miracles. The year 1905 would one day be remembered as a turning point in human understanding, the moment when a single quiet mind reshaped how the universe was seen. But at the time, it began in the simplest way possible, with a stack of papers, a borrowed desk, and the steady rhythm of a clock in a modest apartment above the cobblestone streets of Bern, Switzerland. Albert Einstein was 26 years old, a clerk at the Swiss Patent Office. He and his wife Mileva were raising their young son, Hans Albert, and living on a modest salary. He had no laboratory, no assistants, and no university title. Yet night after night, when the office was closed and the city had settled into sleep, Einstein's mind wandered farther than anyone's had before. He was not chasing recognition, he was chasing clarity. He wanted to understand how the universe held itself together, how light, time, energy, and matter were woven into one great pattern. His habit was to think slowly, in pictures. When others used equations, he used imagination. When others rushed, he lingered. It was in this rhythm of quiet thought that 1905 became his annus mirabilis, his miracle year. In March, his first paper appeared. It tackled a mystery that puzzled scientists for decades. When light shines on certain metals, tiny sparks of electricity jump out. The effect, called the photoelectric effect, didn't make sense under the accepted wave theory of light. Einstein proposed something daring. That light wasn't just a wave, but also came in tiny packets of energy, later called quanta, or photons. These little bundles of energy could knock electrons free like marbles hitting pebbles. This simple idea became the seed of quantum theory, a field that would define much of 20th century physics. It also explained technologies that would one day fill the modern world. solar panels, cameras, even the screens that glow in our hands. But for Einstein, it was simply another step in his long conversation with light. 2 months later, he submitted another paper, this one about something seemingly ordinary, the jittery motion of tiny particles floating in water, known as Brownian motion. Einstein showed that these random movements could be explained by invisible atoms colliding with the particles. His math offered proof that atoms weren't just theories or convenient ideas. They were real, physical things. It was as if he had drawn the first map of the unseen world. And then, in June, came the paper that would rewrite reality itself. Its title was plain and technical, On the Electrodynamics of Moving Bodies, but its content was breathtaking. In it, Einstein introduced the special theory of relativity, and with it, a new understanding of time and space. Until that moment, most people, including scientists, believed that time was absolute. 1 second was the same for everyone, everywhere. Space, too, was thought to be fixed, the stage on which the universe played. But Einstein saw something different. He imagined 2 observers, one standing still, one riding on a fast-moving train. Each sees light flash between mirrors, but from their different perspectives, the flashes take different times to travel. For light to move at the same speed for both, as Maxwell's equations demanded, something else must give way. And that something, Einstein realized, was time itself. Time could stretch, space could shrink. The faster you moved, the slower your clock ticked. Motion didn't just change what you saw, it changed reality. This was more than science, it was philosophy written in math. It meant that the universe wasn't a rigid grid, but a flexible fabric, adjusting itself to preserve the laws of nature. It meant that there was no single now shared by all things, but billions of overlapping nows, each belonging to its own perspective. For Einstein, the insight felt peaceful, not chaotic. It was as if he had finally found the symmetry he'd always sensed, the hidden order behind the compass needle, the light beam, the ticking clock. And yet, his most famous equation was still to come. In September, he published a short follow-up paper with a title only 3 words long. Does the inertia of a body depend upon its energy content? The answer, elegantly simple and profoundly true, was yes. From that question came the equation E equals mc squared. Energy equals mass multiplied by the speed of light squared. It meant that matter itself, the stuff of stars and stones and people, was only energy in another form. The equation suggested that even the smallest bit of matter contained vast stores of potential energy. Later, that idea would lead to both the creation of stars and, tragically, to the power of atomic bombs. But Einstein, in 1905, thought only of the beauty of the discovery, that nature conserved her secrets perfectly, that nothing was ever lost, only transformed. Each paper from that year was revolutionary on its own, but together they formed the foundation of modern physics. At the time, few noticed. The world didn't yet know that reality had been rewritten by a man with no formal title, working alone by lamplight after his children were asleep. Einstein himself didn't seek attention. He kept walking to the patent office each morning, greeting his colleagues with his gentle smile, reviewing diagrams, and returning home to his violin and tea. In letters to friends, he mentioned his publications casually, as though they were simple musings. But scientists across Europe began to whisper about the young physicist from Bern. Max Planck, the father of quantum theory, wrote to him in admiration. "Your papers have impressed me greatly," he said. Others followed, eager to understand this new relativity that made space and time dance together. Einstein answered their questions patiently, though he was already moving on. He saw science as an ever-expanding horizon, each discovery only opening more questions. When asked how it felt to change the world, he replied simply, "It is not the world I wish to change, but my understanding of it." Still, life was not easy. Money was tight, and his growing fame did little to help financially. His relationship with Mileva became strained. Their paths, once parallel, began to diverge. Einstein loved his family deeply, but was drawn more and more into his inner world of equations and ideas. Yet through it all, his curiosity never dimmed. He would sit by the window late at night, listening to the soft ticking of his watch and feeling that strange intimacy with time, knowing that every second was both relative and eternal. Sometimes he would smile to himself, thinking, "Even time is flexible. How wonderful." The miracle year of 1905 ended quietly. No celebrations, no applause, only the steady hum of thought continuing. But its ripples were enormous. Within a decade, Einstein's theories would inspire new experiments, new technologies, and a new way of seeing the cosmos. It is hard to imagine now, in our age of instant connection and endless noise, the kind of stillness in which these ideas were born. But that stillness was essential. Einstein's mind needed quiet, the way the universe needs space, so ideas could expand freely. He once said, "The monotony and solitude of a quiet life stimulate the creative mind." Perhaps that is the secret behind his miracle year. He was not chasing inspiration, he was listening for it. And so, as you rest tonight, imagine that same quiet. A lamp glows in a small room. Papers rustle gently as they shift in the evening breeze. A man leans back in his chair, eyes half closed, seeing the universe not as formulas, but as music. A grand symphony of motion, energy, and time. He smiles, picks up his violin, and begins to play softly. Outside, the city sleeps. Inside, light and thought intertwine. The notes drift upward, joining the hum of the cosmos. Steady, endless, serene. In that sound, you can almost hear the universe itself breathing. And maybe, just maybe, that's the same rhythm that carries you towards sleep, calm, infinite, and full of wonder. Chapter 5: Time, Light, and Imagination. Albert Einstein often said that imagination was his greatest gift. He called it a holy curiosity, a phrase that felt both playful and reverent, as if creativity itself were sacred. He believed that the universe could be understood not only through logic, but through wonder, through images and questions that lived in the space between dreaming and thinking. To him, the imagination was a bridge between what could be measured and what could only be felt. After 1905, his miracle year, Einstein's ideas began to spread through Europe. Scientists debated them in lecture halls, arguing about clocks, trains, and the constancy of light. But while others wrestled with equations, Einstein's thoughts drifted differently. He still worked at the Swiss Patent Office, but now his mind roamed through vast, invisible landscapes. Empty space, rays of light, the slow bending of time. He called these visual journeys Gedankenexperiment, thought experiments. For Einstein, they were not just exercises in imagination, they were the core of his method. He didn't need a laboratory because his mind was one. In one such experiment, He imagined two lightning bolts striking both ends of a moving train at the exact same moment. To a person standing on the platform, the strikes appeared simultaneous. But to someone riding the train, moving toward one flash and away from the other, they would appear at different times. Both perspectives were correct. There was no single absolute now. Time itself depended on where you were and how you moved. It was a simple story, yet it revealed something extraordinary. Time was not a constant river flowing the same for everyone. It was more like a flexible fabric, stretching or shrinking, depending on motion and gravity. Einstein realized that everything, light, matter, space, time, was connected in one grand tapestry. Even for Einstein, this was a staggering thought. It meant that the universe was not a collection of separate things, but a continuous, interwoven whole. The speed of light, the movement of planets, the ticking of clocks, all were threads in the same pattern. He explained it with a warmth that made complex ideas feel almost familiar. "When you sit with a nice girl for 2 hours," he once joked, "it seems like a minute. But when you sit on a hot stove for a minute, it seems like 2 hours. That's relativity." Behind the humor was a truth both scientific and human, that time and experience are inseparable from perception. At home, he often tried to describe these ideas to friends through metaphor. He would pour tea, then watch the steam curl upward, saying that space curved around mass much like air swirled around the rising heat. He would pluck his violin string to show how vibrations traveled through air, the way gravity might ripple through space. His creativity didn't end where the equations began. It extended into the way he saw life itself. Even after his theories gained attention, Einstein stayed humble. He preferred quiet evenings with his violin to the grand halls of academia. "I am enough of an artist," he said, "to draw freely upon my imagination." Imagination is more important than knowledge, for knowledge is limited, whereas imagination embraces the entire world. He believed creativity wasn't a special gift for a few. It was a universal human ability, something innate to being alive. To imagine was to participate in creation itself. He often encouraged students to think beyond numbers. "The true sign of intelligence," he said, "is not knowledge, but imagination." In 1909, he left the patent office to become a lecturer at the University of Zurich. For the first time, he could devote himself fully to science. He was 30 years old, but he still looked more like a curious student than a professor. Hair untamed, pockets filled with notes, his tie often crooked. In the classroom, his lectures were gentle but unconventional. He didn't want students to memorize formulas. He wanted them to see them. He described physics as a living story, not a list of rules. One student remembered how Einstein would pace the room, eyes half closed, as if watching invisible scenes unfold in front of him. "He saw the world in pictures," she said. "He spoke of trains and clocks and light beams as if they were old friends." Even in moments of confusion or disagreement, he remained patient. "Don't worry about your difficulties in mathematics," he told a young admirer. "I can assure you mine are still greater." To him, mistakes were not failures, but doorways, invitations to look again. His own imagination continued to stretch. By 1911, he began to suspect that his theory of relativity was incomplete. It worked beautifully for constant motion, but what about acceleration and gravity? How did the pull of massive objects like planets or stars affect space and time? One morning, while working in his office in Prague, an idea arrived suddenly. What he later called the happiest thought of my life. He imagined a man falling freely from a rooftop. In that moment of free fall, the man would feel no weight. He would float as though gravity had vanished. From the man's perspective, the pull of gravity and the sensation of acceleration were identical. This insight became the seed of general relativity, the idea that gravity was not a mysterious force pulling objects together, but a bending of space-time itself caused by mass. Like a marble resting on a stretched sheet, matter curved the fabric of the universe, and other objects followed those curves naturally. The sun didn't pull Earth. It bent the space around it, and Earth simply moved along the curve. Einstein didn't rush to publish this new theory. He let it evolve slowly, testing it in his mind, exploring every angle. He treated ideas the way he played music, returning to them again and again, adjusting, listening for harmony. "I am not a speed reader of the universe," he joked to a friend. "I am a slow walker, but I never walk backward." The next few years were filled with both progress and struggle. His growing reputation brought invitations to conferences and universities, but also the stress of constant travel. His marriage to Mileva continued to strain under distance and the demands of fame. They eventually separated, a painful but inevitable turning point in both of their lives. Yet even amid personal change, Einstein's focus remained clear. He found comfort in music and in simple pleasures, long walks, friendly debates, and quiet reflection. He often said that creativity required stillness. "A calm and modest life brings more happiness," he wrote, "than the pursuit of success combined with constant restlessness." His mind, however, was anything but still in its curiosity. He began corresponding with physicists and mathematicians across Europe, exchanging ideas about gravity, geometry, and the fabric of the cosmos. Many struggled to follow his reasoning, but Einstein remained patient, explaining with metaphors rather than pride. He once described space-time to a colleague as a great, invisible ocean, moving gently yet endlessly. By 1915, after nearly a decade of work, Einstein completed the general theory of relativity. It was a masterpiece of imagination and logic, the culmination of his lifelong fascination with light, motion, and time. He presented it to the Prussian Academy of Sciences in Berlin, his voice calm but passionate. The equations filled the chalkboard, graceful as musical notation. When he finished, the room was silent. Some understood the magnitude immediately, others did not. But Einstein, as always, was content simply to have followed curiosity to its next horizon. Later that night, he walked home beneath a pale moon. The streets of Berlin were quiet, the city resting after a long day. He paused on a bridge and looked up. Somewhere above him, the light of distant stars bent slightly as it passed through space, curved by gravity, just as he had predicted. The thought filled him not with triumph, but with peace. He felt, as he once had as a boy with a compass, that the universe was whispering its secrets in language both mathematical and deeply human. He realized something profound. Imagination was not a detour from science, it was its heart. Every law of nature begins as a vision, a moment of intuition that feels more like art than arithmetic. To imagine is to listen to what reality is trying to say before we have words for it. Einstein later wrote, "The most beautiful experience we can have is the mysterious. It is the source of all true art and science. That mystery, quiet, patient, and endlessly kind, was what guided him through every discovery. As you drift towards sleep, you might picture that same quiet bridge, the same calm moonlight. The air is cool, the river below soft and dark. A man stands, hands in his coat pockets, gazing upward with a faint smile. Around him, the fabric of space-time hums gently, unseen but real, wrapping the universe in its soft curvature. That man does not feel like a genius. He feels like a witness to beauty. He knows that behind every equation lies something far greater, a sense of harmony that connects everything, from the smallest atom to the largest star. And just as Einstein once said, imagination will take you everywhere. You can let yours take you now, to that same place of quiet wonder, where the universe feels as close as your breath, and curiosity becomes its own kind of peace. Chapter 6: A New Kind of Fame. When Albert Einstein completed his general theory of relativity in 1915, the world around him was unrecognizable from the quiet streets of Bern, where his miracle year had begun. Europe was in the midst of the First World War, and cities echoed not with curiosity, but with the distant thunder of conflict. Berlin, where Einstein now lived, was grey and tense. Food was scarce, the nights were filled with worry, and yet, in a small office at the Prussian Academy of Sciences, a gentle revolution in understanding was unfolding. One born not from destruction, but from imagination. Einstein had shown, through patient reasoning and elegant mathematics, that gravity was not a force that reached across space like an invisible hand. It was the very shape of space-time itself, a bending caused by mass and energy. The sun did not pull the planets. It curved the fabric of the universe, and the planets followed the curves naturally. It was a theory both simple and profound, like discovering that the entire cosmos was a quiet dance choreographed by geometry. Still, for all its beauty, few could prove it. The equations were complex, the effects subtle. To test general relativity, one would have to measure how light itself curved when passing near a massive object, such as the sun. The opportunity would come only during a total solar eclipse, when the sun's brightness faded enough for nearby starlight to be visible. Einstein waited. Years passed. War raged and ended. His health faltered. His marriage to Mileva ended. And his thoughts turned increasingly toward peace and human unity. He wrote letters to colleagues urging compassion and reason. Nationalism, he said, is an infantile disease. It is the measles of mankind. By 1919, the world was exhausted but ready for renewal, and ready too for wonder. That year, 2 British expeditions set out to test Einstein's prediction of light bending. One travelled to the island of Principe off the coast of Africa, and the other to Sobral, Brazil. Their leader, Sir Arthur Eddington, was both an astronomer and a pacifist who admired Einstein's vision of harmony. During the eclipse of May 29th, they photographed starlight near the sun and compared it to its position when the sun was absent. When the results were announced months later in London, they confirmed Einstein's theory. Starlight had indeed curved, just as general relativity predicted. The newspapers erupted in awe. "Revolution in science," read the front page of the Times. "Newtonian ideas overthrown." Overnight, Albert Einstein became a global celebrity, not just a physicist, but a symbol of modern genius. Reporters flocked to him, photographers begged for portraits, and his face appeared on magazine covers around the world. For a man who had spent most of his life in quiet thought, the attention was dizzying. He was amused more than flattered. "To punish me for my contempt for authority," he joked. "Fate has made me an authority myself." Crowds gathered outside his lectures, and even when he spoke, his words were often lost beneath applause. He once told a friend that he felt like a monkey in a zoo, yet he accepted fame with kindness and humor, signing autographs and patiently answering questions from children who wrote to him about stars and time. Through it all, Einstein stayed simple in his habits. He wore the same modest suits, rarely combed his hair, and rode the tram like anyone else. His home in Berlin was filled with books, letters, and the comforting presence of his violin. When friends asked how he managed the pressure of fame, he replied, "I live in that solitude, which is painful in youth, but delicious in the years of maturity." Despite his gentle humor, Einstein took his new platform seriously. He believed that scientific fame should be used for moral good, not personal gain. As Europe rebuilt after the war, he became an outspoken advocate for peace and international cooperation. "Peace cannot be kept by force," he said softly in speeches. "It can only be achieved by understanding." He also used his voice to defend academic freedom and equality. When universities sought to exclude Jewish scholars, he protested openly. "The pursuit of truth and beauty," he said, "is a sphere of activity in which we are permitted to remain children all our lives." For Einstein, that pursuit was sacred, a space where prejudice had no place. As he traveled across Europe and America, audiences filled halls just to see him. They wanted to glimpse the man who had dared to bend time. But what they found was not a distant intellectual, but a man who smiled easily, who laughed at his own absent-mindedness, and who greeted everyone, from journalists to janitors, with warmth. He was asked countless times to explain his theories in simple terms, and though he often joked that only a handful of people truly understood them, he always tried. His explanations were stories more than lectures: trains, clocks, beams of light, everyday images made gentle. He knew that knowledge meant nothing if it could not be shared. His days became full of travel and correspondence. He visited universities in Prague, Leiden, Oxford, and New York, often lecturing in his thick German accent to crowds that hung on every word. Yet when asked how he managed such attention, he smiled and said, "I speak to everyone the same way, whether he is a garbage man or the president of the university." In 1921, Einstein traveled to the United States for the first time. He was welcomed like a celebrity. In New York, thousands lined the streets to see him arrive by ship. Flashbulbs lit up the harbor as he stepped ashore, slightly bewildered but smiling, his wild hair catching the wind. He toured observatories, met scientists, and spoke about the importance of education and peace. He even visited the White House, where President Harding greeted him warmly. While in America, Einstein also raised funds for the Hebrew University of Jerusalem, which he saw as a beacon of learning in a world still healing from war. "Knowledge," he said in his speech, "is not a luxury, but a moral duty." Back in Berlin, he tried to return to quiet life, though that was increasingly difficult. Letters arrived by the hundreds: questions, invitations, praise, and sometimes criticism. He answered as many as he could, often late into the night, his handwriting small and careful. He kept his scientific work alive too, refining relativity, exploring quantum theory, and debating the nature of reality with other physicists such as Niels Bohr. These debates were spirited but always respectful. Einstein distrusted the randomness that quantum mechanics seem to introduce into the universe. God does not play dice, he famously said, meaning not that he believed in a literal deity, but that he trusted in the deep order of nature, that behind apparent chaos, harmony still ruled. Meanwhile, the world continued to revere him. Children dressed as Einstein for school parades. Artists painted his portrait. Poets wrote verses about the man who saw light differently. He was overwhelmed but grateful. "It is strange to be known so universally," he wrote, "and yet to be so lonely." Fame, for all its brightness, carried shadows. The rise of nationalism and anti-Semitism in Germany made him uneasy. His calls for peace and tolerance were met with hostility by extremists who saw him as a threat. Yet Einstein never wavered in his kindness or his convictions. "In matters of truth and justice," he said, "there is no difference between large and small problems, for issues concerning the treatment of people are all the same." To escape the growing tension, he often retreated to the countryside, where he sailed small boats on quiet lakes. He loved the simplicity of wind and water, the silence broken only by the flap of a sail. "Sailing is a way to find calm in motion," he once said. "It reminds me of relativity. Movement is only meaningful when compared to something else." In those peaceful hours on the water, away from newspapers and noise, Einstein found what he valued most: stillness. The same stillness that had guided him through his years at the patent office and his miracle year of discovery. It was in quietness, not applause, that his imagination thrived. When asked what fame had taught him, he smiled and said, "To see with humor the vanity of human ambitions." Then, after a pause, he added softly, "And to remember that curiosity is its own reward." As you rest now, you can imagine him drifting on a small sailboat beneath an open sky. The breeze cool, the water calm. His hair, now streaked with grey, catches the wind. The world knows his name, but he is thinking of light again, of how it moves, how it bends, how it connects all things. He closes his eyes, feeling the warmth of the sun on his face. The same light that curved around the sun during that eclipse. The same light that once glowed in his childhood compass. And just as space and time are forever intertwined, so too are simplicity and greatness, one reflecting the other, quietly, endlessly. Chapter 7. Music, Friendship, and Peace. Fame had carried Albert Einstein into a new world, one of lecture halls, interviews, and applause. But beneath the fame was still the same gentle man who found joy in simplicity. His mind, always curious, remained as humble as the day he walked into the patent office. Even as newspapers called him a genius, Einstein saw himself as a student of the universe, a quiet listener to the music of nature. And perhaps that's why music was such an essential part of his life. From childhood, when his mother taught him to play the violin, to his final years, when it rested beside him like an old friend, music was his language of peace. "If I were not a physicist," he once said, "I would probably be a musician." I often think in music. I live my daydreams in music. I see my life in terms of music. When he played, especially the works of Mozart and Bach, his mind would soften into flow. His friends said that during difficult problems, Einstein would stop working, lift his violin, and begin to play. The melodies seemed to untangle his thoughts. "There are times," he said, "when I cannot tell whether I am thinking or playing." He performed at small gatherings, often with friends, and sometimes with renowned musicians, who admired him as much as he admired them. One evening, he played chamber music with the great violinist Bronislaw Huberman. Another time, with the pianist Artur Schnabel. But whether the room was grand or humble didn't matter. What mattered was the harmony, that perfect moment when sound became spirit. Einstein believed that art and science were born from the same impulse, a longing to express the harmony of existence. All religions, arts and sciences, he wrote, are branches of the same tree. They all direct man toward the ennoblement of life. To him, creativity was not confined to one field. It was a way of seeing. His circle of friends reflected this. He corresponded with philosophers, artists, poets, and scientists alike, people who saw the world through different lenses, but shared a love for truth. One of his closest friends was Michel Besso, the same companion from his Zurich days. They exchanged ideas and letters for decades, sometimes discussing physics, sometimes life itself. When Besso passed away, Einstein wrote, "Now he has departed from this strange world a little ahead of me. That means nothing." For us believing physicists, the distinction between past, present, and future is only a stubborn illusion. It was not a statement of cold science, but of gentle understanding that everything, even separation, was part of the same continuum. Einstein also maintained deep friendships with many other thinkers, such as the Indian poet Rabindranath Tagore. When they met in 1930, the two men sat together in Einstein's home in Berlin and discussed the nature of reality. Tagore spoke of beauty and consciousness. Einstein spoke of laws and structure. "I believe," Einstein said softly, "that truth exists independently of humanity." "But not without humanity's perception," Tagore replied. Their conversation became famous, not because either man won, but because both listened. Two brilliant minds meeting in curiosity rather than debate. For Einstein, friendship was sacred. He valued kindness above brilliance, and he offered it freely. His letters, even to strangers, were filled with encouragement. When a young girl wrote to him saying she wanted to be a scientist but feared she wasn't smart enough, Einstein replied, "Do not worry about your difficulties in mathematics. I can assure you, mine are still greater." He believed that intelligence was not measured by quickness, but by persistence, by the willingness to keep wondering. His patience and warmth inspired people far beyond the world of physics. As his fame grew, so too did his concern for the state of the world. The 1920s were a period of optimism for some, but Einstein sensed tension beneath the surface: political division, prejudice, and fear. He saw the rise of hatred and nationalism spreading across Europe and spoke out against it. "The world is in greater peril," he said, "from those who tolerate or encourage evil than from those who actually commit it." He traveled widely, giving lectures not only on science but on peace. He believed that humanity's true evolution was moral, not mechanical. "Peace," he said in one address, "cannot be kept by force. It can only be achieved by understanding." To Einstein, peace was not passive. It was an active form of courage, the choice to meet conflict with empathy, to replace judgment with curiosity. "A human being," he wrote, "is part of a whole, called by us the universe, a part limited in time and space. He experiences himself, his thoughts and feelings, as something separated from the rest, a kind of optical delusion of his consciousness. Our task must be to free ourselves from this prison by widening our circle of compassion." He practiced what he preached. Einstein was known for his humility, treating everyone with the same respect. He walked to work instead of hiring a driver. He carried his own suitcase on trips, and he gave away much of his earnings to causes that promoted peace, education, and equality. His kindness extended even to animals. He often fed birds near his home and refused to wear leather. Our task, he said, must be to widen compassion, to embrace all living creatures. As the 1930s approached, the world darkened again. In Germany, hate began to organize itself into power. Einstein's Jewish heritage made him a target, and his outspoken pacifism made him an enemy to nationalists. His lectures were disrupted by protests. His writings were publicly denounced. One newspaper even printed his picture with the words, "Not yet hanged," beneath it. And yet, Einstein refused to answer with anger. He kept working, kept playing music, kept believing that goodness was stronger than cruelty. "The weak can never forgive," he said. "Forgiveness is the attribute of the strong." In 1932, while abroad in the United States, he received warnings not to return to Germany. The situation had worsened. His home in Berlin was raided. His possessions were seized. The rise of Adolf Hitler made it impossible for him to go back, so Einstein chose exile over silence. He renounced his German citizenship for the second time in his life and settled in Princeton, New Jersey, accepting a position at the Institute for Advanced Study. It was the end of one chapter and the beginning of another, a life now devoted not only to science, but to peace and human dignity. In Princeton, he found comfort again in the simple joys he had always loved. His home was small and unpretentious. Children from the neighborhood often came to his door asking for help with homework, and Einstein would smile, invite them in, and explain patiently until they understood. He walked daily to his office, his hair white and windblown, his socks often mismatched. When reporters asked for photos, he obliged with a grin, sometimes even sticking out his tongue, that famous image of humor and humility combined. He became a symbol of intellect, but also of compassion, proof that the mind and heart could coexist in harmony. When asked what drove him most, he answered simply, "I have no special talents. I am only passionately curious." In the quiet of his later years, Einstein returned again and again to music. He played his violin often, sometimes alone, sometimes with friends. He would close his eyes, sway slightly, and lose himself in the sound. "Music," he said, "is my refuge. It helps me to dream." And perhaps that was the truest thing about him. Even after changing how humanity understood time and space, he never stopped dreaming. His curiosity remained soft, playful, open. The same as the boy with the compass, the same as the clerk with a notebook in Bern. He once told a friend, "I want to know how God created this world. I am not interested in this or that phenomenon. I want to know his thoughts. The rest are details." To Einstein, God was not a figure, but a metaphor, a way of speaking about the harmony of the universe, the deep order beneath chaos. It was the same harmony he heard in music, saw in mathematics, and sought in peace. As you rest now, imagine Einstein in his study near the end of the day. The lamp burns softly, the violin rests nearby. Outside, the wind stirs the trees. He hums a melody under his breath, then writes a few careful words in a letter. Strive not to be a success, but rather to be of value. The pen stops. The silence deepens. The man who once measured time now sits quietly within it, content, thoughtful, at peace. Somewhere, perhaps, a few gentle notes still drift from his violin into the night air, blending with the hum of the stars he loved so much. And in that sound, that soft, endless sound, imagination and compassion meet once more, forming a music that never truly ends. Chapter 8: Exile and a New Home. In the early 1930s, the world began to shift again. Slowly at first, then all at once. The warmth of the 1920s faded into unrest. In Germany, political tension grew darker each month, and voices of division grew louder. Albert Einstein, who had long spoken for peace and equality, found himself at odds with the rising tide of nationalism and hatred. His face appeared in newspapers beside venomous headlines. Posters mocked his theories. His books were burned. And yet, through it all, Einstein remained calm. He refused to return anger for anger. "Darkness cannot drive out darkness," he wrote to a friend. "Only light can do that." His light, as always, was curiosity and compassion. But in 1933, that light was forced to move. Einstein was in the United States when Adolf Hitler came to power. He was scheduled to lecture in Pasadena, California, and soon after to visit Princeton, New Jersey. While abroad, he received word that his home in Berlin had been raided, his possessions confiscated, and his bank account frozen. Returning was impossible. The Germany he had known, of philosophy, music, and intellectual freedom, had vanished. So Einstein, the man who had once rewritten the laws of the universe, became a refugee. He resigned from the Prussian Academy of Sciences and renounced his German citizenship for the second time. It was a decision made not with bitterness, but with sadness. He had loved his homeland deeply, the language, the culture, the memories, but he could not live under tyranny. "I cannot live where human dignity is denied," he said. "My home is wherever peace lives." He and his second wife, Elsa, eventually sailed to America aboard the SS Belgenland. The ocean crossing was quiet, the days long and reflective. Einstein would walk the deck with his hands clasped behind his back, watching waves stretch endlessly toward the horizon. Sometimes he played chess with the ship's crew. Other times he simply stood at the railing and thought. When the ship arrived in New York Harbor in October 1933, thousands gathered to greet him. Reporters called out his name, cameras flashed, and a marching band played. The city that once welcomed immigrants now greeted a man who represented the world's hope for reason. Einstein smiled, bowed politely, and whispered to Elsa, "They're cheering for relativity. Imagine that." From New York, the Einsteins traveled to Princeton, New Jersey, where Einstein accepted a position at the newly established Institute for Advanced Study, a haven for scholars and thinkers from around the world. The institute promised something Einstein valued most: the freedom to think without interference. Princeton was quiet and green, a small town of tree-lined streets and modest homes. Einstein's new house at 112 Mercer Street was simple and unadorned, with books stacked everywhere and the faint smell of pipe tobacco in the air. His office at the Institute was even simpler, just a desk, a chair, and a blackboard covered in careful white chalk. He fit in immediately with the town's gentle rhythm. Children waved to him on his walks to campus. He waved back, his wild hair blowing in the wind. He bought ice cream cones at the local shop, helped neighborhood kids with their math, and played violin in small gatherings. Princeton became more than a refuge. It became home. Still, the pain of exile lingered. Einstein worried constantly about friends and colleagues who remained in Europe. He used his fame to help them escape, writing letters of recommendation and raising funds for visas. He sponsored Jewish scientists and artists, finding them places in American universities. "The world is a dangerous place," he said, "not because of those who do evil, but because of those who look on and do nothing." He refused to look on. His home became a hub for exiled thinkers, a place of safety and tea and conversation. Visitors described evenings filled with quiet laughter, violin music, and deep reflection. Einstein's thoughts also began to turn outward, beyond personal safety, toward humanity's future. The horrors growing in Europe convinced him that peace could not be achieved by silence. "The world will not be destroyed by those who do evil," he said, "but by those who watch them without doing anything." When World War II began, Einstein felt the weight of conscience. Though a lifelong pacifist, he recognized the danger posed by Nazi Germany. In 1939, when physicists warned that uranium could be used to build an unimaginably powerful bomb, Einstein signed a letter to President Franklin Roosevelt urging the United States to investigate the technology, a decision that would later lead to the Manhattan Project. Einstein's role was limited to that one letter, but the consequences haunted him for the rest of his life. After the war, when atomic bombs fell on Hiroshima and Nagasaki, Einstein was devastated. "I made one great mistake in my life," he said softly, "when I signed the letter to President Roosevelt recommending that atomic bombs be made." He devoted the remainder of his life to promoting disarmament and peace. At Princeton, Einstein became a kind of moral compass for the scientific world. Journalists came to him not only for explanations of physics, but for reflections on humanity. His answers were simple, sometimes poetic. "A calm and modest life," he said, "brings more happiness than the pursuit of success combined with constant restlessness." He declined invitations to political office and awards of power. In 1952, Israel offered him the presidency, an honor extended to him as one of the world's most respected Jews. Einstein declined with humility. "I am deeply moved," he wrote, "but I lack both the natural aptitude and the experience to deal properly with people." He remained a scientist, a philosopher, and above all, a humanist. In Princeton, his days settled into a peaceful rhythm. He rose early, walked to the institute, and worked at his desk surrounded by papers and equations. He often went barefoot, his shoes sitting forgotten beneath the table. He met with colleagues and students, sharing ideas about unified field theory, his final great attempt to connect all the forces of nature under one elegant framework. Though he never completed that work, it didn't trouble him. "The search for truth," he said, "is more precious than its possession." He no longer sought final answers, only understanding. The same curiosity that had followed him from childhood, from the compass to the stars, remained with him always. In the evenings, he walked home beneath the tall trees of Mercer Street. Neighbors would nod as he passed. He smiled gently, sometimes stopping to chat. His hair had gone completely white, but his eyes still held that familiar spark of mischief, a light that seemed to see beyond the surface of things. At home, he read quietly or played music with friends. He often corresponded with young people who wrote him letters full of questions. To one child who asked what he thought about God, Einstein replied, "Everyone who is seriously involved in the pursuit of science becomes convinced that there is a spirit manifest in the laws of the universe, a spirit vastly superior to that of man. He never belonged entirely to one belief or nationality. He called himself a citizen of the world. "My home," he said, "is where peace lives." And in Princeton, he found that peace, not because the world outside was calm, but because within himself, he had made peace with the mystery of existence. When people asked what he missed about Germany, he smiled wistfully and said, "The forests, the music, and the language, but not the noise." By the 1940s, his hair had become legendary, his face instantly recognizable. Children cut out pictures of him from magazines. Artists painted his likeness. But to those who knew him personally, he remained simply Albert. He loved to tell jokes, to share tea, to speak about the beauty of simplicity. "Out of clutter," he said, "find simplicity. From discord, find harmony. In the middle of difficulty lies opportunity." His study was full of that beautiful clutter, piles of papers, scribbled notes, letters from around the world. Yet in that small space, he built a universe of thought and reflection. Einstein once described his mind as a small workshop of big ideas. But in truth, it was more than that. It was a sanctuary for kindness, curiosity, and truth. As you rest now, you can picture him in that little house in Princeton. The clock ticks softly in another room. His pipe sits cooling on the desk. Outside, the wind moves gently through the trees. The man who had crossed continents, who had seen both beauty and cruelty, sits quietly at his window. The stars above New Jersey are faint, but he knows they are the same stars he saw as a boy in Ulm. The same laws govern them. The same light travels through their vast distance. He leans back, closes his eyes, and smiles. The smile of someone who has finally come home. Chapter 9: The Limits of Knowledge. By the time Albert Einstein settled into the later years of his life, he had become something larger than a scientist. To many, he was the face of wisdom itself, a symbol of curiosity, kindness, and calm intellect. But behind that public image, Einstein remained what he had always been, a thinker who loved questions more than answers. His greatest discoveries were already decades behind him, yet his curiosity never faded. If anything, it deepened, turning inward toward the nature of knowledge itself. He often said that as one grows older, the world becomes both clearer and more mysterious. "The more I learn," he wrote, "the more I realize how much I don't know." For Einstein, this was not frustration, it were beauty. The unknown was not a wall, but an ocean. He believed that to approach truth was to sail endlessly across its surface, never reaching shore, but always finding new light in the waves. In his office at Princeton's Institute for Advanced Study, he worked tirelessly on what he called the unified field theory, a final attempt to bring all the forces of nature under one elegant framework. Gravity, electricity, magnetism, light, all, he suspected, were threads of the same cosmic fabric. He spent years writing, calculating, erasing and rewriting, his chalkboard filling and clearing again like tides. But the theory never quite came together. The equations refused to resolve into harmony. Colleagues urged him to rest, to enjoy his fame, to take pride in his earlier achievements. Einstein smiled kindly, but continued. "It's not that I'm so smart," he told them. "It's that I stay with problems longer." He was not searching for success anymore. He was searching for peace, the peace that comes from giving your curiosity a home to live in. He no longer needed confirmation from the world. When he walked through Princeton's tree-lined streets, students would wave, and he would nod politely, his hair catching in the breeze. But his thoughts were elsewhere. on the quiet nature of reality, on the mysterious order that seemed to hold everything in balance. He often described science as a spiritual endeavor. Science without religion is lame, he said, and religion without science is blind. He didn't mean organized religion, but the reverence that comes from awe, the recognition that something vast, orderly, and mysterious surrounds us all. The most beautiful experience we can have, he wrote, is the mysterious. It is the fundamental emotion that stands at the cradle of true art and true science. Einstein had spent his entire life chasing that feeling, the gentle shiver of curiosity that began with a compass and never left him. Even now, when equations refused to cooperate, he felt no despair. A person who never made a mistake, he said, never tried anything new. He worked in solitude, but never loneliness. Letters arrived daily from around the world, from scientists seeking advice, from school children asking about light and time, from strangers sending thanks. He replied to many, often in his precise but kindly handwriting. Never lose a holy curiosity, he would write. It is a gift that will carry you through life. He also kept in touch with fellow physicists, including his old friend Niels Bohr. Their debates about quantum mechanics continued even into their later years, playful yet profound. Einstein could not accept the randomness at the heart of the quantum world. God does not play dice, he insisted. Bohr would laugh and reply, "Stop telling God what to do." Their disagreement was not a fight, but a shared joy in thinking deeply. They both understood that truth, like light, often behaved in two ways at once: particle and wave, certainty and mystery. Einstein's belief in order never wavered. "I cannot believe," he once said, "that the good Lord plays dice with the universe." To him, randomness was only apparent, a sign of our limited understanding, not of a chaotic reality. The deeper we looked, he believed, the more harmony we would find. God, he said, is subtle but not malicious. Still, even as he searched for unifying laws, Einstein grew increasingly philosophical about the limits of science. He understood that not everything that mattered could be measured. Not everything that can be counted counts, he said, and not everything that counts can be counted. To him, knowledge was only one part of wisdom. The other part, compassion, imagination, humility, came from the heart. He often spoke to students about the responsibility that comes with intelligence. Try not to become a man of success, he said, but rather try to become a man of value. Knowledge, he warned, could build bridges or bombs. It was up to humanity to decide which. That awareness weighed on him in his later years. The development of nuclear weapons, born indirectly from his theories, left him both sorrowful and determined. He co-founded the Emergency Committee of Atomic Scientists, advocating for peace and international cooperation. He believed that science, when guided by conscience, could heal more than it harmed. Peace cannot be kept by force, he reminded the world. It can only be achieved by understanding. Still, there were moments of doubt. Einstein sometimes looked at the state of humanity and sighed. "Only two things are infinite," he said wryly, "the universe and human stupidity. And I'm not sure about the universe." But even in disappointment, his humor never left him. It was his quiet rebellion against despair. At home, life remained gentle. His house on Mercer Street stayed cluttered with papers and letters, his desk covered in chalk dust. Friends dropped by unannounced. Children knocked at the door, hoping to see the famous professor. He welcomed them all. Sometimes he'd play violin for guests, smiling as his fingers found familiar melodies. "I know that the most joy in my life," he said, "has come to me from my violin." He lived simply, no servants, no extravagance. His shoes were worn, his sweaters frayed. When people asked why he didn't dress more formally, he replied, "When I was young, I found that the big toe always made a hole in a sock. So I stopped wearing socks." He found joy in the ordinary, a cup of tea, a walk at dusk, the rustle of trees outside his study window. He believed that wisdom was not about knowing more, but about needing less. "Out of clutter," he said, "find simplicity." Einstein was never afraid of death. "It is strange to be known so universally," he said, "and yet to be so lonely." But he didn't mean lonely in sadness. He meant that the mind, in its deepest contemplation, must walk alone sometimes. He accepted that solitude with peace. In his final years, he continued to work on the unified field theory, though his body began to slow. He was diagnosed with an abdominal aneurysm, a swelling of the aorta. Doctors advised surgery, but he refused. "I want to go when I want," he said. "It is tasteless to prolong life artificially. I have done my share. It is time to go." He kept working until the very end. Even on his last day, April 17th, 1955, he was writing equations in bed, his handwriting still steady. When a nurse entered, he smiled faintly and said, "I'll finish soon." He passed quietly that night, at 76 years old. No grand ceremony, no final speech, just a gentle exhale, a release into the mystery he had studied all his life. The next morning, sunlight spilled softly through his window, warming the desk where his notes still rested. In his drawer was a final message written in German, never delivered, a speech he had prepared for Israel's 7th anniversary. In it, he wrote of peace, humility, and the unity of humankind. Even at the end, his thoughts were for others, for compassion, for understanding, for the possibility of a better world. When news of his death spread, people everywhere paused. Scientists mourned, students wept, and artists played his favorite pieces of Mozart in his honor. Yet Einstein himself would have asked for calm, not grief. "The distinction between past, present, and future," he once said, "is only a stubborn illusion." To him, death was not an ending, but a continuation. Another transformation of energy into form, of light into light. He left behind no empire, no fortune, only ideas. And those ideas still ripple through the universe like waves through space-time. His theories continue to shape how we navigate the stars, how we measure time, how we understand reality itself. But his greatest legacy may not be the equations he wrote, but the way he lived, with curiosity, kindness, and courage to wonder. And perhaps that's what Einstein meant when he said, "The important thing is not to stop questioning." As you rest now, you might picture him once more, sitting by the window in Princeton, the twilight fading, the violin resting across his knees. The world hums softly outside, filled with questions he will never stop asking. He looks toward the stars, smiling faintly, as if greeting an old friend. For the man who measured light has now become part of it, endless, radiant, and free. Chapter 10. Legacy of Light. Albert Einstein's life ended quietly, but his light did not. It continued as all light does, traveling outward through time, illuminating minds, shaping discoveries, and inspiring the curious hearts of generations to come. His name became a synonym for genius, Yet what made him extraordinary was not just intellect. It was imagination, humility, and the courage to wonder even when the answers felt far away. He once said, "Imagination is more important than knowledge, for knowledge is limited, whereas imagination embraces the entire world." That belief that dreams are as real as equations has guided countless thinkers, artists, and explorers since his passing. In the decades that followed, the world would continue to test and confirm his theories. Astronomers measured the bending of starlight again and again with satellites and space telescopes, each time finding that his equations held true. The first detection of gravitational waves in 2015, a century after general relativity, was like a whisper from the universe itself, confirming what Einstein had predicted, that when massive bodies move, when black holes merge, they send ripples through the fabric of space and time. He had once doubted whether anyone would ever be able to detect those waves. It would require an accuracy no human could achieve, he wrote. Yet humanity did achieve it, guided by the very ideas he left behind. In that sense, Einstein's mind didn't just transform science, it stretched the boundaries of what humans believed possible. Time itself was no longer fixed, but elastic. Gravity was not a pull, but a curve. Energy and mass were not opposites, but reflections of one another. Each of these realizations expanded not only physics, but imagination, and so his legacy grew. Not as a monument of stone, but as a current of thought flowing through every field that followed. From astrophysics to philosophy, from art to technology. The GPS satellites orbiting above the Earth today must adjust for time dilation, a direct result of Einstein's theories. Every time someone uses a smartphone to navigate, they are quietly relying on his understanding of the universe. But Einstein's greatest influence may live not in laboratories, but in hearts. Because even as he mapped the cosmos, he reminded humanity that knowledge without compassion is hollow. Our task must be, he said, to free ourselves by widening our circle of compassion to embrace all living creatures and the whole of nature in its beauty. For him, intellect and kindness were never separate. He saw beauty in equations, but also in empathy, the ability to feel connected to all things. He believed that curiosity was sacred and that peace began with understanding. His words continue to echo wherever people search for truth with humility. He also showed that imperfection is not the opposite of greatness, it is part of it. Einstein's career was filled with errors, retractions, and doubts, yet he viewed them not as failures, but as companions on the journey. A person who never made a mistake, he said, never tried anything new. That gentle wisdom endures. It reminds us that progress, whether personal or scientific, happens not in leaps of certainty, but in steady steps of curiosity. Einstein's image, the wild hair, the twinkling eyes, the soft smile, remains one of the most recognizable faces in history. But beyond the photographs, beyond the formulas written in chalk, is something much simpler. A man who never stopped looking with wonder. Even near the end of his life, when asked what kept him inspired, he replied, "I never think of the future. It comes soon enough." He lived in the now, a state of presence that mirrored the stillness of space-time itself. He walked slowly, spoke softly, and laughed easily. When a journalist once asked him to define relativity in one sentence, Einstein said, "When you sit with a nice girl for 2 hours, you think it's only a minute. But when you sit on a hot stove for a minute, you think it's 2 hours." That's relativity. That was his genius. Not just the equations, but the humor and humanity that made them understandable. He found ways to make cosmic truth feel intimate, like a story told beside a fire. In classrooms across the world, children still learn his name and scribble E equals mc squared on notebooks, not always knowing what it means, but feeling that it means something big. And maybe that's exactly what he wanted, for people to feel wonder before they feel certainty. His story has become part of ours, the story of what humans can imagine, build, and become when guided by curiosity and love. The same spirit that lifted him from a quiet boy in Ulm to a thinker who rewrote reality lives in every person who asks why and doesn't stop until the question becomes art. He once wrote, "The eternal mystery of the world is its comprehensibility." To him, the fact that we can understand anything at all, that minds made of atoms can contemplate galaxies, was proof of something miraculous. As you listen now, you might imagine Einstein standing beneath a starry sky, his hands folded behind his back, his hair moving gently in the breeze. He gazes upward, not to conquer or to prove, but to marvel. He smiles at the moon, at the endless reach of light, and says quietly to himself, "The most beautiful thing we can experience is the mysterious." That is his true legacy, a reminder that to wonder is to be alive. Final wish for you, rest in the universe. And now, dear friend, take a deep breath. Feel the air moving gently in and out. You've traveled far tonight, across centuries, across stars, through the mind of a man who taught us that curiosity is the language of the universe. Let your body soften where you are. There's no rush, no effort to make. Just rest in the place where you feel most at ease. Whether you're lying down, sitting, or curled up somewhere safe. Imagine yourself surrounded by the soft glow of starlight. You can almost feel it on your skin, cool, ancient, and kind. The same light that Einstein studied, the same light that curves and bends through space, is now wrapping gently around you. The rhythm of your breath matches the rhythm of the cosmos, steady, timeless, infinite. You are part of that rhythm. You always have been. In this quiet, you might hear the hum of distant galaxies, or maybe just the sound of your own heartbeat, steady and sure. Both are miracles. One vast, one intimate, both connected. You can let go now. Let go of thoughts about the day, about tomorrow, about the things you still want to understand. You don't need to figure anything out. You are safe in the mystery. You are allowed to rest here in the great unknowing that Einstein loved so much. If a thought drifts by, imagine it as a small star floating across the night sky. Beautiful, bright, and perfectly fine to let go. The sky doesn't chase its stars, and you don't have to chase your thoughts. Einstein once said, "The important thing is not to stop questioning, but tonight you are allowed to stop, to rest in the silence between questions. The answers will wait. The universe is patient. Feel your shoulders relax. Feel your breath deepen. Feel how the ground beneath you supports you effortlessly, like gravity itself. Invisible but loyal, holding you close to the earth. In this stillness, you might sense what Einstein did, that there is no separation between you and everything else. You are the stars, the light, the calm. You are the observer and the observed. You are the dream and the dreamer. And as you drift towards sleep, know that you are part of a vast, loving order. The same intelligence that spins galaxies also guides your breath. The same light that travels for billions of years now rests quietly in you. You are safe, You are loved. You are infinite. And so, as you drift into rest, let your thoughts dissolve into the gentle fabric of space and time, peaceful, timeless, free. Good night, dear friend. May your dreams be full of wonder. And may you always remember, you are made of the same light that Einstein followed home.